Hello, everyone. I'm Robert Falcione, the editor of HopNews.com. We have a very special guest this evening, author. But before he was an author, he was the music director at WZLX. Oh, by the way, he still is. And he's a well-known disc jockey. I'm talking about Carter Allen. Hello, Carter.
Hi, Robert. Good to see you.
Oh, I'm so happy you could make it. And Carter had a little accident at home. He's got a bum foot. He was nice enough to walk up 2 flights of stairs to be here.
I've gotten really good in those crutches in 3 weeks.
Yeah, well, hopefully you don't want to throw them out when you're done, though.
No, these are from a couple of years ago. I will hang on to these.
Oh, gee.
Because I'm clumsy.
We don't like to hear that. Well, those steps are really bad. Those middle ones inside the place. But we'll help you down.
Despite all the landmines, I made it through, and here I am.
Oh, thank goodness.
The traffic was worse. My God.
Ooh, an hour and a half, did you say?
An hour and a half from
Wow.
Boston tonight. Yeah, it was a good time. Had a great opportunity to contemplate the universe and the bumper in front of me.
Do we say what town you live in?
I live in Hopkinton.
I didn't. Well, I wasn't going to give it away. You never know. You have like 1 million fans, so we have a couple people watching tonight, I hope, and more will watch when we put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
But you've got some real loyal fans, and I mean it's good a reason for it because you're so engaging on the air, and you have all these little quips and that you come up with, and
yeah, I enjoy myself. What I like the most about ZLX and WBCN, where I worked before, is that my main thing is music, and I get to engage what my interest is. I can talk about music. I mean, I enjoy announcing, so I could enjoy reading news or doing something like that. And I did when I was starting out, but the fact that I can talk about one of my favorite subjects, is my angle.
that's wonderful. It's good to do, and like I do, I enjoy what I do. I enjoy everything I do. So, well, the tax bill, I know that's a tough one.
No, I don't enjoy that. But,
and so that's not my favorite thing. But I'm so glad you could be here, and thank you for engaging the Hopkinton party.
Oh yeah.
You did a nice job there, and I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed the acts that came. Carter has a new publication out, and the first one was the one about the rise and fall of BCN. Was that the first one?
Actually, there's a few. I wrote a book about U2 way back when. That was my first book, and then I wrote another one about a sound engineer, a roadie, famous Uber roadie who worked for Steely Dan and Fleetwood Mac. And God, 5 or 6 people had to have read that one. Then the U2 book was rewritten and put out again, and then the U2 book, the BCN book came out. And that was back in 2013. And now this one just came out.
So if you were to go back to the one about BCN,
Yeah.
was Charles Lockwood-Era involved in that book at all? I don't mean
yeah.
involved in writing it, but he was one of the subjects.
Yeah, Charles was, when you think about WBCN, all the crazy cast of characters that went through that building, I worked there, and I was in awe of the people that were there. Everybody had their skills, and you were encouraged to play. You weren't, the boundaries are very open, and geniuses, really were able to create on the spot, and amazing things happen. And Charles, really spent more time at BCN than anybody else over the years. And so Charles, if you had to focus on one central personality that maybe ties the whole ride of BCN, which was 41 years together, it would be Charles. Charles wasn't there at the very beginning, but he was there 6 months afterwards, and he left in 2000. So he was there for a long time.
How many characters did he have? Voices did he?
Voices. Well, Charles did Dwayne Ingles Glasscock. Hello Rangoon. That was his main alter ego. And then he had the folks that were on his morning on the mattress. You had Billy West doing all of his voices.
Oh, right.
Billy used to do Richie Riordan and all these guys. So the morning show. Charles was really the guy that pioneered the concept of a morning zoo format, which is what you hear pretty much whenever you tune into any radio station these days. You got your main guy, you got the traffic guy, you got the sports guy, you got the sidekick that you're bouncing stuff off, the straight guy. You got someone in the background laughing, and he came up with that.
Wow.
while
And
playing this really amazingly cool FM underground music.
now, how about you? And it was cool. It was
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, that's the thing is WBCN was like the Facebook of its time.
Hmm.
You know, a lot of people centralized their life on BCN. They, listened to that station. And if you wanted to know what was happening, not only just with music, because Danny Schechter was a world-class newsman.
Mm-hmm.
And so the news department was like this left-wing radical news, and they used to go into depth on the stories. The news, the news report could be 5 minutes, and it could go a half an hour, depending on what was going on.
Wow.
So
Danny Schechter, your news dissector.
Danny Schechter, the news
Yeah.
dissector.
Now, how many did you have characters, or was it just you?
Me, characters in my show?
Well, no, with BCN, when you were at BCN.
When I was, the thing about BCN is I started there, and I worked the overnights, and then I worked 6 to 10 at night. It pretty much was just me. I have a hard enough time just being me. But then I was asked if I would be music director, and being music director at BCN back then meant that you went off the air. You weren't on the radio. You did one show a week, and so I did a show on Saturday. So I was a music director at BCN from '87 to '98, and so
It's a good run.
so a lot of people, they say, you were on BCN? If they were listening later, they might not know that I was on BCN much because I was behind the scenes, setting up all the interviews, producing all the concerts, and jumping on the air at times with people and doing remotes and interviewing you too and this and that. But so that was pretty much my thing was me. It wasn't so much comedy as much as a straight deal. I mean, hey, I was really happy if I could get a decent joke out when you got these other guys there that could.
Monster comedians.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, Billy West, boy.
Oh, yeah. Now, didn't he do a lot of characters?
Billy, yeah.
What do you call impressionist or?
Billy could do any character, and that's the thing. He could do Larry Fine. He could do the Three Stooges. He would. And the thing about Billy was, you would come to work, and the thing that they were going to do is they were going to produce a commercial where he was going to be Larry. He's going to be Larry Fine, and so he would be that character all day. I mean, you would run into him in the hallway, and he would not break character. He would sound like that. And then after BCN, he went on. I mean, he had a big fall. He got really taken by drugs and alcohol, and we talk about it in the book, and he wanted me to talk about it in the book.
Oh.
He,
To help other people.
yeah, he just, he just really fell hard, and he came back. He took the cure. Hasn't had a drink. He hasn't had a drop to drink and no drugs for 30 years now, and he has become. I mean, he's the red M&M. I mean, on all those commercials, he's
Right.
the red M&M.
Yeah.
He was on Ren and Stimpy. I mean, he's on Futurama. He's like a guy that Hollywood goes to when they need an impressionist.
And he makes a good living at that.
He does. He lives out in the West Coast, in a place that's probably bigger than anything we'll ever know.
Yeah, and so when he does his voices, is he ever on camera doing the voices?
I don't know if he's ever done a special where he actually was on camera as Billy West doing voices. He does a lot of shows. He does like Comic-Con and all that. So, I'd imagine they put him in a booth and he talks about what he does, and I'm sure he breaks into all of his voices, and so people get to see it right in front of him. But usually he's just a character to an animated creation.
Wow. What a way to make a living.
Yeah, so the BCN book was a lot of fun. It took a long time to write because I interviewed 100 people.
Wow.
I had met all those people because I was there for 19 years, and I knew all the people while I was there. But all those legends that preceded me, people, well, I knew Charles certainly, but other people like Max Ann and folks like that, and old saxophone Joe, and Joe Rogers, who was the first DJ on the air there, and Stephen Clean, who was, just madcap, crazy guy. I knew of them and I'd heard them, but I never met them. So I had to seek them out and interview them. And once Charles did a few interviews, everybody sort of said, "Well, this is a good thing," and I'm glad I did it.
Well, now was Charles? Well, when I get back to, I'll backtrack a little bit. what was the end of BCM? Because you're talking about you call it the rise and the fall.
In the fall, yeah.
So why did it fall?
Well, I mean, it came on in that early era of exploration with FM radio when FM first started out, and it just exploded, and it was huge. And there were very few rules. The station was owned by one owner. They were making money hand over fist, even playing Frank Zappa and crazy jazz stuff. I mean, you could do anything. I mean, I got hired, and they said, the format is this: every 6 songs, play a band that could sell out the Boston Garden. That's your format. That was it.
Wow.
And the station was making money. Now, over time, the station got sold to a company. There was a strike because the new company tried to break the union. The station won the strike. The new company and the employees got along pretty well. But then that company was bought out by a large company, by Infinity. And then Westinghouse bought them out. And then CBS Radio. And so now all of a sudden, BCM was just part of a company of 100 and, I can't remember exactly, but it's more than 100 stations. So now you're owned by a corporate company which is public, which means the profits are going to the stockholders, to dividends, and so you're not seeing all the benefits in your right away. The money you're making is not coming back into the station. A lot of it's going out, and so then the expectation goes up. Now it's all of a sudden your ratings have to be better. And so, well, you can't get great ratings playing Frank Zappa into Mahavishnu Orchestra into maybe a Beatles song. I mean, that sounds great. It's a lot of fun to play, and there's a few people that would go, I love that. But you can't, get great, huge ratings with that. So BCN had to start playing more hits and become more mainstream. And over time, there were more choices available because then you had, this is pre-internet, but you had Napster, downloading, file sharing, people being able to create their own playlists, listening to their own thing. Now there's more radio stations involved, so things started getting subdivided, and the stations started, then it's like, what do? Do you play alternative? Do you go play Green Day, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, because that was the big new thing? Or do you stay true to your roots and play, Don Henley, Stevie Nicks, and the classic stuff? You got a classic station on one side, you got an alternative station on the other side, and it's hard to know where to go.
Well, now you're kind of like a heavy kind of classic rock. I mean, to me, even Pearl Jam to me is heavy. But
Yep.
I've heard a lot of Ozzy Osbourne lately and Black Sabbath.
Well, it all depends on who your audience is. I mean, a BCN lost track of where its audience was. And the audience lost track of where BCN was. And so things evaporated, and the company decided to blow the station up, and they made the sports hub.
Oh.
I think you're referring to, so I jumped, I left BCN well before the end. I went to ZLX in '98.
Was it called ZLX?
WZLX, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was very easy to know what to play back then. It was, your basic classic stuff, Beatles and some of the old school stuff like the Animals, but, current stuff. Stevie Nicks and like Don Henley was right in the middle of the pocket. Eagles, the Who, Led Zeppelin. That stuff was great. But as time has gone on, I mean, our audience range is 25 to 54 years old.
I was going to ask you what the range was, because it's
So someone will come up to me and say, "You guys don't on ZLX." They'll say, "You don't play much Jethro Tull anymore." I say, "Well, I love Jethro Tull, and I go to Jethro Tull concerts, and there isn't anybody that's younger than 50 years old at a Jethro Tull show." And so right now, ZLX has kind of gotten into the realm of, we don't program the baby boomers anymore.
Right.
We can't, because they're out of our target.
Right.
We can't make any money on an over 54 audience.
Yeah.
You get into the business of it, which affects what you do. And I still have a great time because I do like Pearl Jam, and I do like this music, and I still have a lot of room to create. So it hasn't become rote for me. But that's why you're hearing heavier stuff, because the younger audience accepts Ozzy like we might have accepted Led Zeppelin in the past. Although the new younger audience loves Led Zeppelin. That band will never go away.
I know.
It is the glue that holds everything together,
Yes,
I think,
yes.
Even the Beatles are not as strong on the current
Oh, no
WZL.
kidding.
Yeah, because
Oh, wow.
we don't play Beatlemania Beatles. We play some of the later Beatles, but Led Zeppelin is, you cannot play them enough.
And you know what's gone really, to me anyway, unnoticed, is the 50th celebration of the Summer of Love.
Right.
I'm really, in fact, I have a picture a friend of mine took and gave me of a Stones concert because I had sold them the tickets at face value.
Well, there's a couple people left in the world that'll sell tickets at face value. God bless you.
Yes, thank you. I could use that. So,
But to answer that, what you just mentioned about the Summer of Love,
yeah,
if ZLX would do a major expose on the 50th anniversary of the Summer of Love, what would we work with? We could work with Jimi Hendrix because he is still adored by the younger audience, and he had his album out that year.
right.
Sgt. Pepper, which is still okay with, we could still work with that. There's not many other, Stones had some stuff out.
Not many people to interview though.
Yeah, that's true. We're losing a lot. The Jefferson Airplane, they were big then, but we don't play the Airplane much anymore at all.
Yeah.
So a lot of those artists have not, if they translate into the younger audience, and some bands do and some bands don't, and it doesn't there isn't necessarily a plausible explanation. Sometimes it's because some of the music got on a soundtrack. Sometimes it's because they had older brothers and sisters who left their records laying around and they love, because a lot of times when you play it, they do love it. But you never know what's going to translate,
Well, I had the privilege of writing a story about the 20th anniversary. And I wasn't, I think it was the 20th. I wasn't really very kind to the memory of it because growing up and becoming mature, a mature adult, I look back on the antics, and what really happened that summer was that, according to William Manchester in his book The Glory and the Dream, I believe 20 million kids smoked pot for the first time. And now they're adults, and now they just made it legal.
Right. But think about all then album rock became big because people would just sit around listening to albums.
Oh, yeah, right. No,
This
I know
is
you.
great.
No, I don't want to get up to you go to the refrigerator. I'll go next time. So no, it was it really was a really great time for music.
It was, and one of the reasons why it was that there wasn't so much expectation placed on it, and a lot of random albums sold a lot of copies because people were out there listening to it. But as time went by, I have this theory that we come up with these great things, these great advances, FM radio, album rock, the internet, and then we proceed to kill it off, because everybody, it's just the way it is. Everybody jumps in with an idea and a scheme to monetize this situation.
Right.
And eventually, all the creativity is pushed out. Lindsey Buckingham, I've said this before, Lindsey Buckingham from Fleetwood Mac had a line in a song. He says, you cannot plant a seed when there's so much greed.
Wow.
And you can't, if you have an idea for a song, if the song is sort of left to center, it's not going to become an instant hit. It's not like, oh my God, this is Lady Gaga's latest. If it's going to be something left to center that's going to hit a certain audience, but a smaller audience, how many of the people with the funds are going to jump in and grab it?
Right.
So.
Well, don't you think the internet has kind of bypassed a lot of the traditional ways to get music in front of people?
Right. Well,
Justin Bieber. And,
there is. You can listen to the internet and you can do your research and you can find stuff and you can find your own playlist and you can listen to your own thing. And there's a lot of internet radio stations. Each internet radio station has like 20 to 1,000 listeners. That's the thing. Everybody is going their separate ways. It's like so many different areas of what you want.
Right. And so in doing that, it kind of, although some stars are born, and that's kind of where I was going with that, is that some stars are born on the internet and make it into the mainstream.
Right.
But as a result of the take that you have on it, which is correct, is that kind of dilutes everything in a way. What people have done with me, no offense to these fine people who don't understand journalism, and will copy what I do
Mhm.
and then put it out on Facebook. Or they'll take my information and put it out on Facebook. Well, give me some credit if you're going to do that.
Right.
You know, because we had a story out 2 hours later, the town puts out a press release for I don't know how many different outlets. Well, I have been asking for that information for a week. Finally, when I get it, he gives it to everybody. You know, so that kind of dilutes what you do because the internet is so fast. They don't know that you were 2 hours ahead of the other 50
Right.
outlets that had the story. So it really kind of
Well, it's
diminishes.
it does, and it's same thing for photographers. Their work gets copied on Facebook and they get no credit. It's not fair. And, file sharing is tough for artists.
Yeah.
Albums don't sell all that much anymore. There are downloads of singles that sell pretty well, but most of the classic bands make their money from touring.
Well,
that's where they have to make their cash.
Yeah, and the record industry, I think I'm not talking about the music industry or the radio industry, but the record industry itself, I caught on. It took me a long time to catch on, but I was the function DJ, and I saw Madonna in a 45. Well, actually, it was a CD single
Uh-huh.
in the top 40 list, and I go out of there and I hear, and it was Vogue. And now Vogue's on the radio. I go, oh, I want that. So next time I go back, within a week. Oh no, the company recalled that, but you can get it on the album, which is the full album, which is in the aisle. So that was the game they started playing, which really led to the end of record store. I think the game they started playing was to take it away, and before that. So, so you'd have to buy a full album of 11 or 12 songs for one good one.
Right.
Like, I don't know if Madonna had any other ballads or anything on that album because I don't listen to it. But
well, I mean that is a good point. That over time there were too many albums that only had one good song on them.
Right.
People really didn't want to buy it. So when downloading came along, it was embraced because you could just get one song. I mean, I have a lot of albums too, a lot of CDs. I have tons actually. When I'm riding in my car, I don't have time to listen to the whole album. So I grab songs off of my albums and put them in my playlist. So people gravitate towards the songs that they like.
This guy's calling you.
Calling me?
Well, let's see what he.
How can he call me in your phone?
Well, because he's watching.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Jack, are you watching? He says I am. Do you want me to put you on speaker so you can ask Carter a question? Okay.
I love technology. This is great.
All right, you're on speaker, Jack. You have a question you want to ask? Jack, sir, turn your radio down, please. I'm just kidding. Okay, do you want to ask Carter a question? Do it over the phone.
Sure. I noticed, Carter, that your Sunday morning blues program has been a little bit abbreviated from a 4-hour shift to a 2-hour shift.
Well, it was 3 hours to 2 hours, but you're correct.
And what is the question? You want to know why?
You want to know why?
Yeah, I want to know why.
Oh, sure. Okay. This is the question I've been answering all summer long.
Carter, is this how you do it? Thank you for calling.
Yeah, thank you for calling. I will answer your question on the air. Thank you, Jacques. It goes back to what we were talking about with the audience getting older. The blues show has been my passion for 19 years almost.
Wow.
And it started off as the idea was the station approached me to do the show.
Mm-hmm.
The idea was to extend WZLX's brand. In other words, people that were into classic rock, take them a little bit over to the other side to show where the music had come from.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't mean that I was just playing all country blues from the 40s or whatever. It was a mixture of contemporary blues, classic rock, and some of this great old classic rock that wasn't getting on the radio like 10 years after, music like that, Savoy Brown.
Oh, you're kidding
You know,
me.
Good stuff. You know, that stuff sort of, you know,
When
is
you said 10 years after, I thought Savoy Brown.
same school. I mean, those
Yeah.
guys were all around back in 67, 68, 69. And Savoy Brown still plays around. Kim Simmons still does good
Oh,
shows.
no kidding.
So that was the original concept, and for years and years and years and years, that was fine. The show did well. It was from 9 to 12 in the morning on Sundays. Well, over time, you know, I have bosses too, and the bosses pointed out that the show wasn't getting the ratings that they expected. And my answer to that was, well, I didn't know that it was a show that was supposed to get ratings. It was an image show. It's, you know, but now that you're looking for ratings,
Like a little boutique kind of
yeah,
thing.
exactly. I said, but now that if you want ratings, I will try to deliver them to you. So, you know, I could play bigger hits in the blues show and still have a great time because those songs don't get played ever anyway. You know, The Thrill Is Gone by B.B. King, that's a huge hit.
Right.
But how many times do you hear that on the radio? So I tried to do that, and the idea was you need some more younger listeners because there's not enough younger listeners replenishing the older listeners that are leaving the pool that are within our target demo. So I understand that because, you know, I am a DJ, but I'm also a programmer. You know, I learned all that at BCM when I was doing music directing. I know the reasons why they ask these questions, and I understand the wisdom or the lack of it. I understand the pressure and having to react to that. So I did the best I can to respond to that. Apparently I wasn't able to respond well enough.
Oh,
The Beatles show that preceded me, Chachi, Larry LaPrette, he has done a Beatles show for years. I actually hired him to do that show. Is so passionate about the Beatles. He loves the Beatles. It's his main thing. And so he did a 1-hour show before the blues show, and that was on at 8. Well, we all got moved earlier. He went on 7 o'clock, and now I'm on 8 to 10. And so I would suppose that is to minimize, you know, the impact on what is seen as how well the station does the rest of the day. But that's why. And the thing is, I have not gotten angry about it because I still have a show. I still have a blues show on a major 50,000 watt station in the number 10 market in the U.S.
wow.
And
Now you're talking.
so, I mean, my boss explains things to me. I understand,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't cancel the show, and so I appreciate that. So I've never really gotten angry about it, but I have had to answer that question a lot. So much so that when I emceed the Blues and Brews Fest out in Neshoba Valley in August, I actually was on the mic on stage. I actually explained it to everybody because I was getting tired of everyone coming up and asking me. But, you know, I appreciate it because that audience for the blues is such a passionate musical audience.
They do. They love the blues when they love the blues.
They do. I mean, my midday show I really enjoy doing, and a lot of people get excited about it. But a lot of people, most people, it's just it's part of their day. It's a soundtrack of their day. They're at work. It's in the background, whatever. But the blues show, people turn it on and they're emailing me going, "What was that? Who played that?" They're into it, and so. I mean, in 2017, for me to be in my position to have a show like that and have people respond like that, it doesn't happen to many people.
Yeah, it's gratifying.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah. It is. Those things, I have that similar in photography. You know, I'm gratified by the fact that people continue to call me in my old age and have me do portraits of family members or business members, and I do appreciate that. And of course, we've veered off into hopnews.com because of what has happened in photography.
Yeah.
You know, studios closing, and the big part of it is not because they're doing a bad job, but because you know, this camera, for instance, I had a photo on today on Hop News that was HDR, which is what is that? That's high dynamic range, and they just pop. These pictures
Yeah.
just pop. And
But do you still, let me just ask, I mean, you still use like a Canon digital or anything
Yeah,
like
I do.
that?
I do. Yeah.
Good.
You have to, but I mean, I'm riding around and go. I don't want to carry the kit with me anymore
Yeah.
because I got the lens for the like I took one. Joe Kennedy was in town, and he went to the to Sandy's home, and maybe I don't know 30 or 35 Democrats. all. They just posed themselves. And I went up, and other people were there that wanted to do it, and I went up with the camera. But I will tell you, just judging from where everybody was, I was probably the only person that got the whole width because I had a wide angle.
Right.
But I don't have that unless I take that kit with me.
Right.
And the zoom and so forth. So, no, I understand what you're talking about with the blues, and they are really, and the strange thing is that the blues lovers aren't always musicians. I think that.
Oh yeah, they're regular. And the thing is, there are younger people that like the blues, and it sort of slides. I mean, all music is every genre. It fades into the next genre. It isn't a clear definition. It's jazz, blues, rock, blues, rock, jazz. So the jam band scene, which is favored by so many younger people, is really a stepson of the blues scene. And so I can play stuff like Government Mule and Susan Tedeschi Trucks Band, J.J. Gray and Mofro, groups like that, and really engage younger audience. And so there is still an audience out there. I mean, if I wanted to completely, I say, grab a younger audience, I'd probably have to do a jam band show, which is not really what we want to do.
When you say jam band, are you talking about a genre or a level of play?
A little bit of both. The level of play is high because these guys are jamming on stage, and they really take their tradition from maybe a band like the Allman Brothers, which would go on for 20 minutes to a half an hour, creating this incredible music. And certainly Derek Trucks is a direct descendant from the Allman Brothers band, and so is Warren Haynes and Government Mule. But all these bands, I mean Robert Randolph and all these groups, and really.
Have I gotten to the Allman Brothers yet?
I don't know.
Are they in here?
The Allman Brothers band is in my new book. Yeah.
Here it is again, folks. It is the Decibel Diaries, a journey through rock in 50 concerts, and Carter does not hold back when he's talking about the people that were playing the music and the people that peaked and then petered out and then came back again, and the volume it's full of metaphors. If you like metaphors, you're going to love this book. He has I would probably just open it up and
there's the Allman. There's the Allman Brothers band.
Talk about karma, huh? I saw them, No, you saw them at Grey Woods.
Well, I saw the Allman Brothers live. I actually saw their last show down in New York at the Beacon Theater a few years ago.
Oh.
But this book it's 50 concerts, and it pretty much runs through my life. The first concert is the James Gang back when I was 16 years old in Pennsylvania when I was growing up, and the last concert was 2 years ago at the Orpheum Theater. It was Joe Walsh. And in between is just, it's not an attempt to explain the history of rock and roll. It's just 50 great concerts for different reasons. There was a great thing happening or an interesting thing happening within the band. Might have been an interesting story that I was going through. We all have those interesting stories going to concerts, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The Allman Brothers show that you're talking about at Great Woods was back in '93, and that was the night that Dickie Betts couldn't make the show because he got arrested in Saratoga Springs for hitting his wife.
Oh, jeez.
Well, Dickie had a problem with alcohol, and he's beaten all that. But he went through a rough patch, like a lot of musicians. I mean, it's pretty crazy out there. And so they needed a guitar player, and so they couldn't find one at such short notice. So the guy that booked the Allman Brothers band, I mean, they made some phone calls, and they couldn't get a hold of the people they wanted. So this is the middle of the night. And so the guy that booked the Allman Brothers band also booked Ozzy Osbourne, right? And so I said, Ozzy's guitar player, Zakk Wylde, is a real Allman Brothers freak. He's in this Allman Brothers Lynyrd Skynyrd tribute band in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever he gets off tour, they go out and play for fun. They play these clubs on the Strip, and they do Allman Brothers and Lynyrd Skynyrd music. I bet he would fill in for Dickie.
And he was there?
Well, he was on the West Coast, but they called him up, and he got on a red eye, and flew east, and he gets on. They had like 10 minutes to rehearse, something silly, and so they got on stage, and the whole deal with the Allmans, because you've seen him, is it's all like it's laid back. It's like nobody's a star. There's no stars. The music is the star. They're just playing. Every once in a while, the guitarist, Warren Haynes would step up and, and Greg would do a thing and the drummers would do their thing. But the music was the thing. So it comes time for Zach to do his first solo. And wouldn't you know it, he locks into Ozzy Osbourne thing. And he becomes the rock god guitar player. And it's like he runs up to the edge of the stage, he starts playing the guitar with his teeth, he's playing it behind his back, he's spitting beer in the air. I mean, he does it all. It's just hilarious, and so I wrote about that show, even though I saw many, many Allman Brothers show. I just thought that was a funny moment. And if, Warren Haynes, I mean, Greg Allman, bless his soul, I interviewed Greg many times, and I liked the man. He was a gentleman. Up until the day he died, I could mention that show and he would remember it.
Oh,
he
wow.
would just like, oh yeah.
Now, which one married Cher?
Yeah, Greg.
It was Greg. He had long blonde hair.
Yeah.
I thought he was a woman. I was at the concert. I go, who's that?
And you went to the Summer of Love.
It was the Summer of Love, I think. Actually, you know who? I saw them, I think, at Orpheum or the Music Hall. And the Youngbloods opened up for them.
That's a good show.
Yeah. Oh,
Jesse Colin Young.
This is before Jesse made his star.
Yeah.
And they were just like these three. It seemed like there were they were going to college, and they were just out there chatting to the audience and
right.
silly stuff,
very
geeky stuff.
Informal.
Yeah. And what a wonderful sound. Then the Allman Brothers came on. I mean, talented, loud rock and roll, but it was the loudest music I've ever heard to this day.
Yeah.
And we got up front, then we had to back up.
Yeah. Some bands,
So loud.
I think, play too loud to their detriment. I remember seeing the Black Crowes a lot. I loved the Black Crowes, but I always thought they played too loud. You missed a lot. You missed a lot of nuance. When the music gets so loud, it starts becoming white noise.
Yeah.
You really start losing melodies. And this last time, the Black Crowes, they have a new lineup with Rich Robinson, the guitar player, Chris, the singer, his brother's not in the band anymore. And there's backup singers, and it's a big band. It's like, I think it was like 9 people in the band. And I saw it at the Wilbur Theater in Boston, which is a really great place to see a show. And they played so loud, I couldn't even hear the backup singers. And so
That's a shame.
there are times when, volume can be your enemy.
Yes, and it certainly was that day with the Allmans,
Yeah.
the Allman Brothers, because we did get up front. Well, we hardly ever get up front,
Right.
but apparently there's a reason for it. But Santana was always right on. Everything was so clear. Oh, now you saw Santana.
I've seen Santana many times. I
Yeah.
thought that Carlos is just a world-class player, and you always know him. As soon as you hear the sound of his guitar, you know who it is. And,
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't
yeah, and he's always been willing to experiment. I mean, the Santana show, I remember in the early days when I was in college, I was really into those first 3 Santana albums, the Cuban rhythm rock and roll thing.
Yeah.
Oye Como Va and, Black Magic Woman, that sort of, that sound. So we went to see them in Miami, and Carlos had changed gears. He got into jazz. He got into fusion jazz. He's into John McLaughlin and all of this stuff. And so the band, when we saw them, they were doing a whole different thing. They were doing this really crazy jazz soul thing. And I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
And and I was immature as a listener at that point. I wasn't able to really make the transition. I was kind of like, I don't know if I like this. And it took me years before I got back into that phase of Santana and really fell in love with it.
Did anything become a hit when he was doing that stuff?
No, he didn't have any hits with that. No,
Yeah.
but it was a time when people were buying albums, and so he actually still made a good living.
What happened to the drummer from Woodstock? I mean, all of a sudden, he's not with them.
Michael Shrieve? Yeah, Michael Shrieve was the young drummer. He was in the band for a long time. A lot of that original Santana band left when Carlos wanted to do jazz, and that's where Journey came from, because Greg Rowley, the keyboardist, and Neil Schoen, the guitar player, said, we've had enough of this, and they left and formed Journey. So a lot of people from that band jumped off ship. Michael Shrieve lasted for a while. He lasted through the jazz period, but then he eventually left. But he has actually gotten back on stage with Carlos on a number of occasions recently. And he was pretty young at Woodstock. I think he was only 17.
Yeah, he looked like a kid.
Yeah, he was.
He really did. He looked like a friend of mine, as a matter of fact. I used to think it was him.
he was one of those drummers that, you know, like Mickey Hart from the Grateful Dead, really got into um, third world rhythms and different sounds. And like when you do a solo, you wouldn't just like, you know, beat the drums. You might like wail on a triangle for a couple minutes. Or stuff like that. So he really got into that sort of thing, and he put out a lot of rhythm albums, you know. So he's not kind of he's not the guy that was in the mainstream, but he's been around and still
Yeah,
is.
he was good. He was good. Now this guy that was the lead singer of the Yardbirds.
Yeah. Keith
Ralph.
Yeah.
The guy was so good. Do you remember how he died?
He electrocuted.
Yeah, on stage with the mic or something.
No, actually, well, Keith Ralph actually electrocuted at home. There's a couple of stories, and I'm not sure which one to believe.
Okay.
Some people say that he was taking a bath and he tried to, he grabbed his guitar to play something and got electrocuted in the bath. But I have since heard that that wasn't the case, but it did happen at home. He was on a guitar and his guitar wasn't grounded, and so he was electrocuted at home.
And that's a good lesson, because the guy was a good singer. He was in a great band, and so all you youngsters out there, make sure everything's grounded. Do not go outdoors with an electric guitar and amp and stand on your bare feet.
Right.
It's a bad thing, really bad.
Sometimes you can fake it by going wireless, and you get into some dangerous situations, and because you don't have a circuit going around from guitar to your microphone.
Right. Right. Yeah. Good point.
I mean, there have been some people that have been electrocuted on stage. I mean, there's a guy, Les Harvey, who no one would know. He was in a band called Stone the Crows, and he was an English band. Maggie Bell sang the vocals for that band. She was a pretty good blues shouter, kind of like Janis Joplin. He was playing his guitar, and he grabbed the mic to sing, and he was stuck on that mic. And they took a roadie. A roadie came running off, running from the side and plowed into him, but it was too late.
Doesn't take much.
Yeah,
it really doesn't. Yeah, just enough to throw your rhythm off.
Yeah. I mean, generally, stage production is a much more of a science these days, and back then it was not as much, and so these things don't happen as much. But if it starts raining or something like that, it can be a real problem.
Yeah, that's for sure. Speaking, I know I just thought of the Buddy Miles thing. The stage manager, because my cousin Jack was a stage manager for Buddy Miles, and Jack DiGiovanni. He's on my Facebook if you want to argue with him. See that? He loves to argue. But
Buddy Miles, man.
So I think he got Buddy Miles and Hendrix together.
Well, that was the fun. I love band gypsies. Most people are partial to the Jimi Hendrix Experience. I mean, that's on the radio. That's what everybody wants to hear. Those three Hendrix Experience songs. Yeah, but I love Electric Ladyland, the double. But I love Band of Gypsies. I love that live album.
Oh yeah, that's a great album. And I like Buddy added a lot. I think with the drums and the vocals.
Yeah, it was a different thing too, and it was great because Hendrix is the same thing as Santana. He wanted to do some different things.
Right.
The industry and the world wants you to do the same thing. You find the hit formula, and they want you to keep doing that. They want you to keep making the money. But Jimmy had to do something else, and so he picked up these two guys, and it was a pretty heavy duty statement having an all black band back in 1969.
For sure.
And Jimi Hendrix was a big star, and it kind of ruffled some feathers, I think, socially for a lot of people. But the music they made was just tremendous.
Oh, it was wonderful. And I saw them before they were them at Brown University. Jimmy played with the Experience.
Nice.
And of course, he switched guitars. I might have been the only one and they played in the gymnasium because people think Jimi Hendrix these days, and they think, wow, and maybe he would fill the stadium, but he didn't then.
No.
And if you look at Woodstock, I mean, they were picking up the rubbish while he was playing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, but.
Well, I mean, arguably, if Jimmy had gone on like second day in the afternoon, there would have been a full crowd. But after 3 days of partying or whatever, people are starting to leave. Well, some of them even have to get back to work.
Did you go there?
Just before my time.
Yeah.
I was too young for Woodstock. I went to some rock festivals. I went to so many rock festivals that I would never go again.
Really? Yeah.
I mean, you really lose your patience. I mean, If you're younger, great, go ahead. Facilities are better, but waiting an hour for a bathroom I've had that.
Yeah,
It always rains. It always rains. It could be at Rock Festival in Phoenix and it'll rain.
for the only time that year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, getting back to the Decibel Diaries, what would you say would be your most memorable and why? Most memorable concert.
Uh-huh.
Can we start with the most enjoyable because of talent and sound production and the whole, all in all? Or would that be criteria for you? Or would it be a political statement?
Well, I think my favorite, and it's in the book, would have to be seeing Roger Waters do The Wall at the Berlin Wall
Wow.
back in 1990,
Yeah.
the summer of 1990.
Political.
Well, it was all those things. I mean,
Yeah.
The Wall was one of the biggest stage productions ever, and at that point had not been staged since Pink Floyd did it in 1981.
Mhm.
So it hadn't been on stage for 9 years. Pink Floyd, wasn't doing it. And so Roger's out as a solo artist away from Pink Floyd. And The Wall had come down in various states and forms at the end, it was 89, end of 89, and into the early part of 1990. And so he decided he would stage The Wall with his backup band and guest stars at the Berlin Wall at
Wow.
Potsdamer Platz, which is
Mhm.
this huge area of no man's land between East and West Berlin, between the walls. It's right by the Brandenburg Gate. It's where Hitler had his bunker.
Wow.
And it was no man's land. And in fact, they were digging up unexploded mines and bombs up until about 3 weeks before the concert.
Wow.
It was enough, you could get 250,000 people in there.
Mhm.
And so they sold tickets, and 250K went, and it was broadcast around the world. And so they wanted various radio stations and broadcast organizations to send representatives.
Mhm.
And so I was chosen to be part of the journalist pool,
Mhm.
and I was reporting on 10 radio stations for CBS.
Oh, fantastic.
So they flew us over, and it was pretty wild because at that point in time, you still had to fly the narrow air corridors from
Ooh.
West Germany
Right.
to West Berlin through East Germany. And then you land in Berlin, and you talk about the Summer of Love in '67.
Mhm.
Berlin in 1990, when I got there, is July, and it was summer day, sun, beautiful day. And the people were just like in the streets. It was like the Summer of Love there. It was like Woodstock was happening in Berlin.
Yeah.
And there were people coming over from the east that were just mesmerized just by looking at golden arches at McDonald's, because they have never had a choice. They don't. And we took bus over to East Germany, over to East Berlin.
Mhm.
There's no color over there. It's all grays, browns, and
Yeah.
blacks and whites. And
Well, Gray's in now, I understand.
it is.
We had a quilter on
Yeah.
a few weeks ago. She said Gray is in.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's me. But
And
that's okay. I understand what you're saying, though.
And
So,
it was just, the Berlin Wall was coming down. You could rent a hammer and chisel from a kid on the street and chisel off a
wow.
piece.
Get your own piece. Did you do that?
I did.
Wow.
And
Did
then
you sell it?
No, I got them. I got
Good.
them.
Good.
I still got my pieces.
Remember the gazebo?
Yeah.
I have a spindle from
Oh, good.
that. I'll trade you.
Never sell. Oh, I'll trade you. Trade you for some Berlin Wall for Hopkinton Common. I love it. But the concert itself was just incredible, because Roger Waters, and Roger is finished now, but he toured the Wall around the world in recent years.
Wow.
He did like 150 shows, and he did Fenway Park on a couple of nights, and it was an incredible production. But back then it was incredible as well, and it was just so cool to see. We're in bleachers right up against the wall. The wall still isn't down, and you could see like the East German army.
Mhm.
They had driven their armored personnel carriers and tanks up to their side of the wall,
Oh,
and
gee.
the soldiers are on top of the tanks and they're dancing.
Excellent.
And there's people over in East Berlin on these really ugly projects on their balconies dancing,
Oh, wow.
and it's like, and you really felt like everything's going to be okay. Like
Yeah.
people felt like in the Summer of
Yeah.
Love at Woodstock, we
Oh, yeah.
actually felt that
The
we're
East is
changing
gonna
the
join
world.
the West. Yeah.
Yeah, everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be good from now on. And you left that concert going, this is awesome. Of course, it wasn't too long before everything goes to hell again.
Yeah.
But that was really cool. That's why that's the most memorable show for me. The actual show, the production, the music, the political statement of it, the Summer of Love, transposed that aspect of it.
Sure.
It was just...
And the young get in control, because it's been usually the youth
Yeah.
who have these ideals and aspirations.
But the thing was that, and you're right, but it was seeing people from every age group. I mean, everyone's weary of war.
Yeah.
I mean, and everybody in Berlin were like weary of being stuck over there with barest, necessities. I mean, it was bad over there. Or even, we went over there. It's like, there was a butcher, an enterprising West Berlin butcher, drove a truck over there and was advertising cuts of meat. He had a microphone. He's like, so you wouldn't think twice about this. He's like, here's T-bone steak, and here's a rump steak, and there's sausages, and blah, blah. And people, there's a huge crowd in this square, and you could see like the old Russian Stalinist images, on the sides,
Sure.
of the buildings, and the people were just like standing there with their mouths agape. Because they're not used to having a choice.
Right, yeah.
They're used to getting to the store and maybe one piece of beef there and maybe one loaf of bread. It was something. And so, the youth might have been the ones to spearhead that. But
Ronald Reagan had a great joke about the contrast between their form of communism and capitalism. He said there was a man who finally qualified for an automobile. And he said, well, yes, thank you, Comrade Commissar. I would like to know when I could pick up the car. He says, you'll pick it up in 10 years. He says, morning or afternoon? He says, what does it matter? It's 10 years from now. He says, the plumber's coming in the morning.
that's good.
So
That's good.
Reagan brought about the...
It's about how long we're going to wait for a plumber now.
well,
Everybody's busy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my concrete guy over for a year.
No, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. We need it done.
That's another interview.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, if you're doing concrete people out there, all you wonderful concrete people, give Carter a call. So, okay. So now you've picked out your best, and I have a similar thing, not quite as exciting as the Berlin Wall, but the Doors played at the Back Bay Theater. I don't know if it was '67 or exactly what year it was. That theater's since been pulled down, demolished. And to hear, there's one of the counterculture leaders, the subculture kind of leaders up there singing, and his band's playing, and you hear the drum roll. We want the world, and we want it, drum roll, and 2,500 kids scream now. Just that kind of exaltation, that kind of
Power. That's amazing power.
Yeah, you just want to be, So how do you reach the young people today with those kinds of important messages translated into today's world?
That's interesting. I think that they have their own culture of conversation, which maybe we're not privy to in a lot of ways. They understand the movement of the world, which is moving so quickly in ways that it's hard to grasp as you get older. I mean, it really is difficult. Because it's hard, because you start saying, well, back when I was your age, they don't want to hear it. I mean, David Bowie's Changes, that song is all about that. The kids they don't want to hear your message. They got their own, you can, outside of politics, you can tell kids in high school, like, don't do cocaine. Don't do that. It's an end of the road. So many of my friends crashed and burned. A lot of them are dead. Why would you ever do that? And you think that message will get through, but it never does. Every generation has to make its own mistakes.
And this generation and Eric's in particular. Can you count how many, Eric? I don't want to bum you out, but
Probably 10 people.
yeah, one of his contemporaries said 14 in that group in Hopkinton, which when they were born, there was probably around 7,000 people in town.
Yeah.
He's in his early 30s, 34. So this age group, this range didn't get it, and maybe they're getting it now because so many have been lost.
Yeah.
But it's got to be some message. Where does it come from? You know, if it comes from the people that cheated death, well, then are they the ones? Are they the ones that have the
Well, that's
high
a
moral?
well, they have a powerful message.
They
you know,
do.
because their contemporaries will listen to them. You know, whereas they might not listen to a political leader or a medical leader or or an advertisement on television or on radio or something like that. So,
Yeah, but a lot of times it's a lifetime.
yeah.
This affliction, and I don't know what I have no idea because I have luckily have not had that problem. But some people that do, you just wonder, buddy, you haven't done it for 40 years. What do you mean you backslid?
Yeah.
You know, you wonder, what is it? And I guess really it's just chemistry.
Yeah. Well, you have a piece missing, and you have to fill that with another passion, something which becomes so important and so joyous that you would never consider going back.
Yeah.
But it's getting back. I mean, it's generational. It's That's why radio has been hard for me, and is that my generation that grew up with me when I was on BCN is not necessarily my audience now. And so I've had to, now I go to shows and I see what a younger generation would like, but I'm not inside. So, it's not as easy as it used to be for me. I mean, it used to be instinctive. Oh, of course I know what to play.
Yes.
Now you got to do a little research and you got to listen. You got to really listen to your audience and hear what they want. And
So you're what age to 55, 54?
about 25 to 54,
25 to
is
54.
the target,
Yeah.
And
What about more youthful? Is there a market for is there popular music?
well, there is pop. I mean, pop is you see it everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
you hear it everywhere. The music, Katy Perry and Lady Gaga, that's your pop music.
Okay.
And
Bruno
and it's
Mars?
huge.
Is that what you
Bruno,
call it?
yeah, Bruno Mars. And some of those pop artists, don't have talent at all. They use auto tuners to tune their voice and this and
Really?
that, and they use tricks
Wow.
for the trade. But some of them are great.
Mm.
You mentioned Bruno Mars. Bruno Mars is quite the talent.
Isn't he though?
I look at Bruno
Yeah.
as a young James Brown.
Yeah.
Or a Prince.
Right.
And so, I don't have a Bruno Mars album, but I bet on the albums he's put out, there's some things that he stretches out on, gets away.
Okay. Yeah, good point.
But so the younger audience has its music, and there's a lot of younger people that don't like pop, that like rock. And so they'll mix what they like. They'll listen to what we play. They'll listen to Tom Petty and Led Zeppelin and Ozzy Osbourne, but then they'll also have their own personal tastes that they'll add to the table.
Are there any new artists that come along that, like I've listened to your station since we booked this,
Right,
and so I'm hearing a lot of stuff I know or I know of.
right.
Are there any new artists that come along that fit into the slot that you go, oh, here it is, this fits in between this and this,
Right.
let's play this, or is it all strictly
Well,
older stuff?
ZLX by nature is a classic rock station, so
Right.
we play hits. It's a hit station.
Yeah.
But because we are also playing the hits of FM rock, we're playing stuff that wasn't on top 40 radio. So we're not out there searching for new stuff. I mean, if you want to hear new music on ZLX, the best place you're going to hear new music is on the Blues Show, because I play a lot of new music on the Blues Show. As far as what ZLX plays, it's new. I mean, it's usually the new track from an established artist. We like that new U2 song, so we play it yesterday and today. New Foo Fighters is a great band. I think they have the tradition of great bands in the past because they just have a real passion for music, and they love the audience. They love the tradition of music. David Grohl and the Foo Fighters, one of the first of the new bands to embrace bringing Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones of Zeppelin on stage with them at Wembley Stadium, and playing with Brian May on stage, and David Grohl playing drums for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers at one point. So those guys are, I don't look at the Foo Fighters as a new band. I think they're a classic band putting out new music. But there are bands out there that are doing more new music. I think a lot of this is like a lot of jam bands we've talked about. But at this point, ZLX is still true to its original um, dictum, which was to play classic rock. It's a hits station.
Yeah.
And it was around at the time that BCM was around. BCM was playing the new music and the hits, but ZLX was a hit station.
Well, didn't BCN had a little more of an edge to it at the
Totally,
time?
completely.
Yeah.
You know, but as time goes by, I mean, it's really hard. I mean, you have to maintain an image. You know, you got to be something, and that was one of the problems at BCN. People kind of lost touch with what BCN was. What are they? They have the Patriots. They have Howard Stern. They play some music. It's kind of a blurred thing. You know, what is the image of BCN? And once you start losing your image, you start losing your audience. So you kind of really need to mean something. So, you know, it's like classic rock. That's what we are. And some people may say, no, Pearl Jam is not classic rock. And they will leave us. They will.
Wow.
But you have to stay true and say, well, you know, we're dealing with music that came out 25 years ago now.
Yeah.
And so we need to play this. And most of our audience wants to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
So we consider it to be classic rock.
Well, now, do you, as a music director, do you have a chart, minute by minute, and you write out what you want to play
Well, what we
for
do
that
is,
show?
you know, I plan the music for the jocks with spaces in there so that they can put in some of their own choices. And if, you know, and each DJs are different. Not every DJ knows their music so well.
Uh-huh.
You know, some like our morning show, those guys are great comedians and they are great at human interest stories and they play a little bit of music and they very rarely relate or talk about the music.
Mm-hmm.
So I do their show for them with that in mind. Chuck Nolan in the afternoon knows a pretty decent amount about music. So he calls me and says, I want to play the Tubes, you know, talk to you later. I go, okay, sure, why not? Or Kenny Young at night, you know, he will change something that I wrote and he'll put something else in. And it's okay because these guys know their music. It's all right. You know, and if they go overboard, if they play something which was not what I think was right, and I think they played something which might have lost listeners, I'll tell them, just so that they're more aware of where the line is.
And
you
how
know?
quickly do you get this feedback, though?
Well, I would see it the next.
From what?
Next day.
The next day you'll see that you lost listeners because they played something.
Oh, that no. Well, you know,
Yeah.
it's a tricky thing. The ratings are a tricky thing. You know, you get ratings every week
Uh-huh.
from Nielsen, and
Is that the Arbitron? They took over Arbitron?
they took over Arbitron. Yeah, so the people that I can't talk too much about it because
you're licensed.
because I'm
probably,
licensed
right?
and but
Yeah.
people that are rated have personal people meters and they listen to their stations and these meters listen to what they listen to. And then they
All adds up to this. And
they
says-
collate the data and they spit it out every week.
Uh-huh. And you get a standing. Can you say what your standing is in the Boston market?
Yeah.
I think you did earlier.
Oh, me personally?
No, I mean the station.
The station's third place in men, right behind the two sports stations. I'm sixth place in adults.
Wow. In the Boston market or the
Boston.
or the greater Boston?
Boston.
Just Boston.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you can't say anything about the Patriots probably.
Well, I mean, the Sports Hub is our sister station, so.
No, what I mean.
Well, the better the Patriots do, the worse I do.
What I mean though is that I wonder if they got affected, not just by my stopping watching them,
Right.
because of the politics. I just stopped.
Right.
I don't think that might have registered because I'm not carrying one of those meters with me.
Right.
But
You know, the thing
can
about
you talk about that?
Well, the thing about sports radio and talk radio is I have no musical competition really. My main competition is sports radio and talk radio, and it's because like some guy a guy in a gas station, the Patriots game comes on. He's working the gas station. He doesn't have a TV, so he puts it on the radio. He's listening to Sports Hub. He'll listen to the whole game. He'll listen for all 2.5 or 3 hours, and the pregame goes on forever.
Mm-hmm.
So he could be listening to them for 5 hours, and the ratings are huge.
Wow.
But for music stations, people are punching back and forth. You know,
Right,
that's the nature of the beast. So someone might listen to me for 20 minutes and then go, I'm not going to sit through these commercials, and they go over to say AAF, and you go, these guys are playing some good stuff today, and they stay AAF. So back and forth. But sports radio is tough because people will listen to an entire game, and if their sports commentary in the morning and in the afternoon are compelling, they'll stick with them too. I don't. The television aspect doesn't affect me.
Right. Yeah.
That goes above, where you're talking about media and the pie chart of which media is making the most money. Is radio share shrinking? Is TV share shrinking? Is the internet share, is pay-per-view big? That's the sort of thing that's a...
Do you have answers to that?
I don't.
Yeah.
I do know that radio's market share has shrunk over the last 25 years.
Right, yeah, you assume so, yeah.
So the ratings don't reflect that. It's a percentage of the pie for us.
Right, yeah.
So the money aspect, I don't know. Radio's still hanging in there. We still own the car. We're still king of the car.
You are, that's right, yeah.
And internet is coming into, internet's already into a lot of cars, but once it's a mainstream feature of all cars, then I think terrestrial radio really has to worry.
Well, when you're talking about into the cars, you're talking about like Sirius music, that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, we
Stations.
compete with satellite radio.
Well, are you on it?
Am I on satellite? No, I'm
No.
just on terrestrial.
Well, what about getting on satellite? Would that help maintain your market share or increase it?
Well, I'd have to get fired or lose my job first before I do that.
No, I don't mean you personally.
I mean,
meant-
satellite radio would be a lot of fun. I mean, you're speaking to the entire country. And the thing I like the most about it is that you can do your show from home, and I wouldn't have to get on the Mass Pike every day and night and spend 2 hours of my day, which I'll never get back.
Right, yeah, and then 2 hours, 1 hour each way,
At least.
sometimes more.
So sometimes
you
more.
you could spend 3 hours in traffic
Yeah, it's.
a day.
But
should-
doing it at home, is doable, and you cut your breaks. You put together your playlist for satellite radio,
Mhm.
and they have it's what we have. You have a giant iPod. You load the music into the iPod, and so if I put together a show for say one of those channels like Deep Tracks on Sirius XM, I would say, we're going to play Savoy Brown, we're going to play, and it would be in the iPod. All I got to do is cut the voice tracks at home,
Mhm.
and it's all put together by a computer.
Do you do that at all?
Would I do that? I mean, I don't do that.
You
I
don't do
I
that.
do a live show. Would I do that? I would do that because I would enjoy the music I play.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of you have the opportunity then to also listen to your show
Mm.
as it's happening.
Right,
You
yeah.
can listen back to it.
Do you want to do that? Would you want to do that very often?
Satellite?
No, I mean listening to your own show. I
Um,
mean, you have to do it. You must hear yourself while you're doing it.
yeah, I don't like listening to myself.
Well, that's what I meant.
You know
I
what?
don't mean-
You know what I can't do?
What?
I can't watch video of me.
Really?
I never watch any
You're
video.
not going to watch this video? Come on. All right, forget it, Eric. Rewind it.
Rewind. There you go.
Yeah, there's no rewind.
I just
There's
hate.
no rewind button on
I
this.
just, I did video. I mean, there was a time in the '80s when every one of us wanted to be an MTV jock,
okay. Yeah.
and we all tried. And I actually did this little insert, a 2-minute insert on a cable system out of Needham, which ran on MTV. It's 2 minutes, and we would use a local video, like
Mhm.
a local band would do a video,
Oh.
and I would do a little rap. And it was 2 minutes long, and there was a commercial in it, so it was very quick. And so the Needham cable system, they put together a video cassette for me, compilation of the
Mhm.
year's shows.
Oh.
And back then, back in the '80s, we had the big hair.
Oh, sure,
Big
yeah.
hair, and you could fast
It's
forward.
coming back, as
But
you
you
may
could
know.
fast forward the video cassette, see my
Oh.
hair go. Touch of blue every once in a while.
Oh, wow.
It's hilarious.
And what was the show? Music?
Yeah, it was
presented-
called
you played-
Boston Beats, and it was just
Oh,
but it
that
was
sounds
only.
familiar.
It was just a 2-minute insert into a cable system,
Oh.
it was into a commercial break,
Mhm.
and there was someone would sponsor it, McDonald's sponsors Boston Beats, and I go, this is Carter Allen, and the Ball and Pivot have put out a new video for their single Blah Blah, which we're playing on WBCN. And then we would play as much of the video as we could.
Uh-huh.
And at the end would be a tag, So tune in tomorrow for Boston Beats at boo boo on Needham blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Be very quick.
Oh.
but it was.
And you didn't like yourself in that?
No, it was fun doing it. I just
Yeah.
didn't want to watch myself after
Oh.
it was done.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
it's
I
just,
don't-
it's just the way it is.
well, I can't watch a whole show just because I know it already.
Right, you've done the
'Cause
show.
I just did
I've
the
just
sh- yeah,
I've
you
just
just-
done the show
right,
too,
right,
so
exactly.
I don't need to watch.
So with a lot of people who come on, they've never done anything like this. So we'll go, oh, you want to see what we just did? And so we'll watch 10 minutes of
Okay.
it, But
Well, you can give them mine then.
I will, because I don't think you're going to want to hang around and watch the show. But Decibel Diaries, ladies and gentlemen, this is a lot of fun, and we didn't talk enough about it. We talked about a lot about other stuff, especially the very interesting stories that you have, and especially the one about the Berlin Wall.
Yeah, and there's everybody in there. I mean, there's also a nice little trip through the Boston punk scene. With the Cars and the Talking Heads coming up through the Rat, that whole scene. Some of the concerts occurred before I moved to Boston when I was a kid in Pennsylvania. There's a couple in Florida, but most of the shows were from the Boston area.
Uh-huh.
And I have to say, before we go,
50 of them, ladies and gentlemen.
before we
50.
go, I love this guy. I did a book
50.
signing for the BCN book at the Hopkinton Library.
Right, I was there.
It was a great night. I had a really good time, and I was just looking at my phone to try and find a date, but I'm booked to do the new library in March. I know it's a long way off,
Wow, yeah.
but they wanted me in March. So just go on the, I don't even know if it's on their schedule yet, but I will be at the new Hopkinton Library in March, early March.
And we'll be reminding you of that probably in early February. And it'll be for this book.
For Decibel Diaries,
Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't get this. What I did get, ladies and gentlemen, was this. I got that in my copy of it, of the Decibel Diaries.
Well,
And there you have it.
you did me a nice favor. 2 weeks ago, I had to postpone because I got hurt and a rather large log fell on my leg and my entire leg blew up. And we were joking about it. We're calling it "I fought the log" and the log won. And I'm still on crutches, but thank you for.
Oh no, I'm so glad that you did. You owe me nothing. I'm so glad that you were able to eventually make it. And that day you did that you had to postpone. I went down and had a little bite down at the Spoon, and someone says, "What happened to Carter?" I said, "Carter who?" 'Cause, I know for sure you're not the only Carter I know. So he says, "Carter Allen." I said, "Oh, a big log," and I'm showing him a log because this is what I envisioned. I'll go. A log came crashing down and bounced. It hit his leg, and I'm looking at your tree guy, telling him.
Oh, Joe Regan.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
Joe
yeah.
Regan is my tree guy.
So
Yeah.
I'm wondering, why does he know Carter? And
Yeah, Joe's the man.
yeah, he's done some work for me too. I'm surprised he still gets up there. He was taking one down at the Common one day, and he found a bee's nest, and he just stuck his hand in there and ate the honey.
No.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh.
Ask him. Oh yeah, he's a real woodsman.
He's a real Winnie the Pooh. That's who he is.
That's a good one.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're gonna let people know, and I know it's been difficult. I know hiking up the stairs to the second floor to get here, especially when they're so steep, and also to sit here all this time with that leg problem. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And maybe we'll be lucky enough to have you back sometime.
I'll be back.
All right. That
Thanks.
was a good
It was
one.
fun. Good time.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.